Today, I'm flying with Oman Air in economy class on a red-eye flight from Milan to Muscat on their flagship Boeing 787-9. This little talked about Middle Eastern airline consistently offers some of the cheapest prices between Europe and Asia, so today I'm going to see what all the fuss is about and whether they're worth giving a chance over larger regional competitors like Emirates and Etihad. I started off at Milan Malpensa airport where I just arrived off a British Airways flight from London. I didn't have a bag to check either and had already checked in online, so there was no need for me to queue up, but worth noting that 3 hours before departure the bag drop queue looked like this, so already quite busy. This flight was scheduled to depart at 9 PM, and with just over 6 hours in the air we would land at 6 AM in Muscat. And a bit of foreshadowing, I didn't manage to get any sleep at all during this flight for reasons you'll see later. But luckily my onward flight from Muscat to Bangkok was in Oman Air's business class, and that was far more comfortable. So you can find my review of that flight in the description below. Milan Malpensa Airport, meanwhile, is definitely not an airport I enjoy. The entire main departure area is just an assortment of luxury shops and not much else. Then you have these 3 wings where the gates are, but they're just cramped and tatty with nowhere near enough seats. Though I will say, for an airport of this size, they do have an impressive amount of international routes. At 28 million passengers a year, they serve a similar amount of destinations as Rome Fiumicino, which serves almost twice as many people. And all of the designer shops kind of make sense, considering Milan is supposed to be one of the fashion capitals of the world. Security and immigration is pretty efficient too, and they have the new e-gates, which is great for me as a UK citizen, as I no longer have to wait ages to get my passport stamped. They even have some abstract sculptures on display for the discerning traveller. Now, the way the gates are arranged makes it quite difficult to do any plane spotting, but I did see this Juniao Airlines 787 and an Uzbekistan Airways Airbus A321neo, just an example of some of the exotic airlines that fly here. And here's our plane, a 4-year-old Boeing 787-9 registered A40SK. Oman Air have 9 of these in their fleet, with a further 5 on order, with the rest of their relatively modest fleet being made up of Boeing 737s. They formerly flew the Airbus A330 but I think all of those are retired. Interestingly enough, they also leased one plane to Riyadh Air, who gave it this nice paint job, and Oman Air have a relatively limited route map compared to their larger Middle East rivals, and their main business seems to be shuttling people between the Indian subcontinent and the Middle East and Europe.
Oman Air Zone 3 and 4. Zona 3 e 4.
Boarding started on time and was pretty efficient considering the flight was pretty much full, but before we sat on board, here are the stats and route map for today's flight. The flight was almost entirely in darkness and we departed on time but landed about 20 minutes late due to some strong headwinds, but that did mean we got a really nice sunrise arrival into Muscat, so I can't complain too much. The plane has a regular free layout, and thanks to booking this as a reward flight for British Airways, all but the extra legroom seats were free to select. They also have this really cool 3D tool so you can see exactly what the seat is like and compare it against other seats. Also, as we walk through the business cabin, just a reminder, it's fantastic, especially if you get one of the window seats. Check out my full review in the description below. Then, heading to the back of the plane, we reached the economy cabin, where I was sat today. This plane is quite new and the cabin felt fresh and clean. Legroom is actually surprisingly good and feels like more than your typical economy class. And as you can see, plenty of space for a short person like me. Looking on their website, they say it's a very generous 34 inches of seat pitch, which, if true, would make it pretty much the best legroom of any airline in the world, tied with Japan's ANA. But I'm not actually sure what to believe here, as everywhere else I looked said it was a standard 30 to 32 inches. And looking at Oman Air's own website page about the 787, they actually have a picture of a single-aisle 737. And even Google's famously always correct AI synopsis wasn't sure, so I'm not sure if I trust that. But either way, legroom is good. The TV though, I can say with certainty, is an average 10.6 inches, so nothing special. I was also relatively near the front in seat 21A, so had this great view of the wing and engine. Waiting at your seat is also a pretty typical blanket and pillow combo. There's an adjustable headrest. And standard economy class earphones, though I didn't use them as I have this cool Bluetooth gizmo which lets me connect my own wireless headphones with ease. They work well and you can connect up to 2 devices at once, so click on my Amazon link in the description if you want some for yourself. As mentioned before, the screen is pretty standard for an economy screen, and overall the IFE system is okay, and it has quite a good catalogue, but not many new movies. Mostly older classics, but they had the Lord of the Rings trilogy, which is all I need. Despite only being 4 years old, the screen was a bit laggy and unresponsive too, as you can see here. But overall, not bad. The safety video started playing as we pushed back, so here it is. And it's not the most interesting, but does a good job showing off some of the stunning scenery of Oman, and if you've never been, it's a really cool country with some really nice hotels and incredible landscapes. Massively underrated and almost like the anti-Dubai in my opinion. So here's my recommendation to add it to your list. I mentioned earlier the movie selection is nothing special, so I just ended up watching Lord of the Rings. And then 30 minutes into the flight, dinner was served. And it was actually quite decent. A chicken biryani, nicely seasoned, though a bit heavy on the rice. Then a cold bread roll, butter, water, a basic cucumber salad, and some sort of tasty mousse-like dessert. Then a ginger beer to drink on the side. Also worth noting, they do serve alcohol in economy class, in case you're worried about this being a dry airline like Saudi Air or something. They also give you a wet wipe and salt and pepper, so slightly better than some airlines. Cough, British Airways. It was almost 11 PM by the time the meal service finished, so the whole cabin went to sleep. Or at least tried to. As you might have heard in some of these clips, a baby was pretty much crying the entire flight. And at times it was loud enough that even my noise cancelling headphones couldn't drown it out. So I feel sorry for the baby and the parents, but most of all I felt sorry for myself as I couldn't sleep at all, and arrived very grumpy in the early morning in Muscat. Here we are on a beautiful morning in Muscat, where we arrived just a few minutes late. Before I sum up this trip, I should also add that Oman Air provides some of the cheapest fares in this region, which really makes them an appealing option. Here, for example, a return trip from Dubai to Bangkok with Oman Air was £261, much cheaper than any other option. And here, another return flight from Milan to Delhi, Oman Air almost the cheapest and by far the cheapest full-service airline. So really just a great value proposition, and Muscat Airport was really nice too. And another interesting tidbit, the whole building smells like frankincense. Overall, this flight was decent but not great. If you can find a good deal, as I regularly see Oman Air offer, then I would absolutely fly them again. But the seat is just okay, the food is average, and they're not as generous as more premium airlines like Qatar Airways or Emirates. Service from the crew was very much lackluster too, and they gave off the impression they would rather not be serving anyone. A big contrast to their business class crew who served me on the next flight and were great. Thanks to that and the limited IFE selection, I'll give them a 68.75 out of 100, mainly because of their excellent value for money, though I did book this flight with Avios. I'll put the overall airline at an 8 out of 10 on my airline tier list though, as I really like their business class, and I've experienced better economy flights with them in the past as well, so I think they're still a pretty good airline. Now, if you're looking for something else to watch, then here's my preview of my next flight with Oman Air to Bangkok in business class. I think Oman Air punched well above their weight on this flight, and I loved the seat and food, so I highly recommend giving that a watch or checking out some of my other flights from this trip, like these two great flights with Cathay Pacific. So thanks for watching. If you made it this far, please like and subscribe if you enjoyed, leave a comment if you have any thoughts on Oman Air, and goodbye.